It was good, baby.
I grew up absolutely enamored with video games. I played hundreds, from DS to Game Boy to Wii to PlayStation. And with retro achievements being something that is constantly being updated, I thought it would be a good idea to add a load of my childhood games to a wheel and then see if the selected game had a set of achievements for me to attempt to master in the name of nostalgia. So with that being said, let's spin the wheel and see where I would start this journey down memory lane. Let's see. Mario vs. Donkey Kong? Yes, Mario vs. Donkey Kong Mini Land Mayhem. I believe that's a DS game. That it is. Released in late 2010 by Nintendo, of course, this puzzle game is the third in the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series and plays somewhat similarly to the old Lemmings games, where you don't take control of the characters themselves, but instead need to control the environment to ensure the little protagonists can reach the end of a given level. I don't remember a whole lot about this game myself, but with IGN giving it a whopping 9 out of 10, I'm hoping to at least have a rather enjoyable time. So let's dive headfirst into this game as we start by simply completing every level while trying to get all collectibles along the way. Booting up the game, we are welcomed to the grand opening of Mini Park, where the first 100 customers get a free Pauline figure!
I can think of a couple uses for this.
Get in the jar. DK, being her biggest fan, comes running to nab a trophy, only to learn that they've already sold out. So he very rationally kidnaps the real Pauline, causing Mario and his minis to give chase, leading us into the first level. Things start rather simply, teaching me the basics of the game, introducing the main mechanic that I'll be using throughout my playthrough, the ability to remove existing red beams, and then reconstruct them between any of these red blocks, before allowing me to tap each mini to get them moving, with the level finishing once all little clankers reach their intended goal. Rather simple, but admittedly, kind of satisfying. Moving on to the next level, still keeping things rather simple, it introduces us to a new mechanic. I'm assuming if I do that, that's not going to be enough. Yeah, you need 7. So I'm assuming when you pick these up, I'm going to get 8, because it's going to add 3 to the 5 I currently have, and then I can obviously do that. So what I'm going to want to do is start them off, and then while they're on the go, lead them up. And then once they've reached the top there, simply make the cross here. And we should be golden, right? Like this. Yep. There we go. Interesting. Level 3 changed things up a little bit by having the mini start in 2 different locations, but by setting only one of them on the move, they'd eventually join up with their friend, and then they could head towards the goal together. The next level introduced me to the concept of having multiple characters who need to go through their own respective exits, as well as a new mechanic where one of the minis started in a capsule, meaning they could only set off once freed by another mini. Though this may have been a double whammy of new things to learn, the level itself was pretty easy, as we are still in World 1 after all. 1.5 added enemies who can only be killed by first leading a mini into picking up these hammers, then setting them on the world's slowest collision course of inevitable demise. Level 6 introduced me to ladders, which minis will automatically climb when walked past, whether I want them to or not, as well as the idea of stages being bigger than the screen could show at once, which, let's be honest, was only a matter of time. This thing is like the size of 1.5 Jaffa cakes or something. 1.7 was a bit of a scary one, as it added the DK mini, who I was tentative about at first, but very quickly found out all he really does is throw minis upwards, so he's cool in my butts, I guess. And finally for this world, the 8th stage had locked doors, which could only be unlocked by the specific mini who starts out with the key, meaning I would have to rearrange which mini would make it to the goal first, because otherwise... But this didn't take very long to do at all. And so, with that done, I was already onto the first boss fight of this playthrough. For this, I had to guide 3 minis to these blue buttons to electrocute Big DK. However, he would not make it easy for me, as he could not only make it rain barrels down that would take out any mini it lands on, but he could also switch what platforms you could make by deactivating different blocks. That said, I did manage to take him down with a few minis remaining for the first achievement of the game. So he ran off to the next world, and we were given access to a mini game for collecting all of the cards, as well as access to a special level for collecting all of the M tokens. Deciding to try my luck at the mini game, I found myself in a fun little pachinko-like game where you had to guide falling minis into boxes worth differing values. Toads were worth slightly more than Mario's, so they did take priority, but by simply aiming for the 4 times box every time, I managed to get enough points for all 3 medals on my very first attempt. Back in the menu, I noticed the only thing that I hadn't obtained in this world was the trophy on the boss battle, which I assumed was due to losing a couple of lives, so I decided to take a very quick visit back to Mr. King Kong to whoop his ass once more, this time without a single casualty, only to not get it. Being the stubborn ass I am, I went once more, this time with no casualties, and making sure to pick up both collectibles, even though I had already got them, which gave me the perfect bonus at the end of the level, popping the Grassland Harmony achievement for getting absolutely everything in the first world. Moving on to the second world, and we found ourselves in the jungle, and you know what you find in jungles? Springs, apparently. A mechanic I fortunately took to rather quickly. I even made a little jingle out of the music.
Suck on my penis and suck on my balls. Suck until I'm fucking dry. Suck my penis and suck on my balls. Suck 'em every motherfucking night.
The second stage of this world looked a little bit daunting, purely from a scale standard. But once you run through it in your mind, it's really nothing too complicated, as proven by the fact that I made it my bitch. Stage 3 tried to throw me off by literally just making the springs a different colour. I'm onto you, you sneaky bastards. While Stage 4, however, was already showing warning signs off the get-go, as the stage icon was red. However, this was rather fittingly a red herring, as the stage was in fact easy as shit. Entering Stage 5, I was concerned at first because I noticed an enemy near the exit, but no hammer in sight. But it turns out you can just slide into them like every other Mario game and be hunky-dory. Stage 6 wasn't really anything special, but there were 2 pipes in it, so I called it Pipeland, which coincidentally is where I took your mother last night. Reaching Stage 7, however, I inevitably made my first big mistake, as I had initially assumed that the hammer power-up would last forever. But as soon as I heard that music, I realized I was dead wrong and started to panic, causing me to beeline straight for the exit without collecting all the collectibles. Luckily, upon restarting the level, it clicked almost instantaneously in my head, and I was done and dusted in a matter of seconds. Entering the final puzzle stage of this world, I was surprised to see it was a smaller level, but here's the thing. You know that phrase you've always been told, don't judge a book by its cover? Well, they lied to you. This shit was easy. And so, with all stages complete, it was boss time once again. And heading into the arena, I realized it was exactly the same as the last fight, but with springs. But even so, I did still manage to lose a mini to a falling tiki head, but at the very least, I did get the achievement Deep Jungle Hijinks for beating DK a second time, as well as a new background and items for the construction zone, which I'm pretty sure is this game's level editor, so Obviously, I returned to the fight once more in order to pull it off flawlessly, which I did manage to do with relative ease. You didn't see that. Allowing me to see that the minigame for this stage was very similar. At first glance, it looked almost exactly the same as the previous one, but look closer and you realize that the name of this game was getting the right minis into the right boxes. This sounds simple on paper, and it is, but when you get further through and things start speeding up, it's pretty safe to say that things got a little bit overwhelming. But I just didn't let that get to me, and a little organizing later, I had all the medals in this world for Deep Jungle Tranquility. And so DK runs off once more, this time to Tea Time Twirl, and come on, you can't have tea time without conveyor belts. And trust me, we are starting off with a lot of them. They're pretty simple though, as they do exactly what you'd expect, and you can change the direction at any time by simply hitting these switches. So simple in fact that only 2 levels into this world, not only do they straight up give you the ability to make them yourselves, and oh lordy is it satisfying, but they also introduce crumbling blocks, which I get the feeling I can look forward to absolutely despising. Level 3 was nothing special, just more conveyors, and honestly, there was no complaints from me. But 3-4, however, added another friend to the mix. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was that I managed to beat this stage with 3 coins still remaining to be collected. Luckily, going through it a second time, I was able to pick them up towards the start of the level, then send the minis to the correct destinations and move on. Entering 3-5, our friends unfortunately couldn't stay, as it was quickly back to just the main man himself and a rather tall level. However, for as tall as it was surprisingly basic for this far through the world. Unlike the next stage, which, due to an unfortunate timing mishap, caused me to get my very first failed level. But you do get infinite retries, so who really gives a shit? Plus, failure is a great teacher, I'll have you know, as proven by the fact that I absolutely nailed it on my next attempt. 3-7 was your obligatory mini DK level, and I'm not gonna lie, I was feeling pretty goddamn confident. So confident, in fact, that I decided to just stare down this bumbling baboon and watch his demise slowly approach. Perish. And finally, we had the obligatory key level, which kind of confirmed my suspicion that if you just nab everything in these levels, you will almost always end up with the key bearer in front anyway. So these levels almost play themselves in a way. Okay, time for some monkey manslaughter. And this time, he didn't come alone. I figured that if I simply focused on the small ones first, I would be fine, but But don't worry, I was sure to get it the next time, right? Okay, so I died twice. Okay, I died a lot, but only because this guy fucking sucks. This stage single-handedly took me 20 minutes somehow, which is crazy, as that's how long it took me to beat all of these stage levels in World 1. Either way, I did eventually take his ass down for Sweet Tea Turmoil, allowing me to move on to this world's minigame. And yes, it has conveyors. In fact, if you just time the direction changing well enough, then you can actually use said conveyors to basically do all of the work for you. So, that's exactly what I did, and lo and behold, about a minute later, the Sweet Tea Peace achievement was mine, and it was time for something a little bit more spooky. And what could be scarier than moving pipes? Heading into the first stage, I instantly realized that this world would take more brain power than before, but fortunately not too much more, as I would have we nailed it anyway. Also, quick footnote, I am going to try and skip through the levels a little bit faster from here on out in the interest of the fact that my time is actually precious, believe it or not. I mean, I am playing through Final Fantasy VII, Persona 3 Reload, and all of the Resident Evil games over on my Twitch, you know? Please follow me! Level 2 stepped things up a little bit by combining both pipes and platforms to worry about at the same time, and then Stage 3 contained pipes and springs, and I may have had to repeat the level once, since apparently I missed the trophy in it somehow. I assume I was just too slow. Stage 4 combined pipes, platforms, and having multiple characters to deal with. Okay, I'm starting to get a little bit overwhelmed here. And then level 5 added unkillable projectile shooting piranha plants, which, yeah, I'll admit, killed me a couple times. But one of those deaths was absolute bullshit. If I do that, we win. I tried to click the arrow! The next stage had pipes, platforms, ladders, and killable enemies, which really put my mind to work. Oh my god, that was a lot of quick thinking on my feet. Just kidding, I'm sitting down. Then, of course, we had the mini Donkey Kong stage, which, for lack of better terms, stressed me the fuck out. Oh god, almost didn't move fast enough there. And then kill him. Oh my god, that was close. Before bringing it home with the key stage, which was admittedly a nice step back from the mind-fucking. But this didn't last, because now it's time to deal with pipes, bombs, and a big old fucking gorilla. In this fight, DK's switch changed the location of the pipes, which doesn't seem important, but trust me, it really is, because if you enter the right pipe on the wrong side, you're just gonna miss the bomb completely, which, trust me, happens a lot. Also, DK is a filthy cuck, so he'll do shit like this. Please don't hit the switch, please don't hit the switch. I'm going to kill you. Don't hit that fucking switch. You have literal syphilis. But being the Giga Chad I am, I was eventually able to use his own power against him to win the fight. I need him to swap. Make this blue. Make this blue. Yeah, you silly bastard, you signed your own fucking death papers. You're a silly bastard, aren't ya? Finally, the minigame of this world had me expecting something devious and complicated, but it was just the minigame from World 2 again. Only did you notice the difference? That's right. The pipes are ever so slightly jumbled, and there's a few less blocks. Yeah, it wasn't very hard. Allowing me to move on to Sandstorm Steps, where I now had to make the ladders myself. So, yay! Another thing to worry about. And no, you can't make them diagonally. Trust me, it is the very first thing I tried. Luckily, other than that, the first stage was pretty damn simple. 5.2 introduced fireball enemies, and honestly, I think past me described it best. They can use ladders too! They have no fucking arms! And 5.3 had both editable and non-editable ladders, which I thought would be pretty simple, but surprised me with how many issues it caused me. Stage 4 had multiple friends, including a new character who I really didn't expect to see. Look at my boy! He's friendly now! And Stage 5 had pipes, enemies, platforms, and editable ladders all at once. But that all pales in comparison to this one elite moment. Then they can drop down. Oh my god, he fucking caught her! What a trick shot! Level 6 had platforms, movable pipes, and editable ladders, which juxtaposed Stage 3 because it surprised me with how simple it was. And then naturally we had, wait a minute, who the fuck are you? Honestly, I could not find a thing on who this gilf of a monkey was, but I did learn that if he takes all your minis, you lose. So, don't let him do that. Fortunately, Stage 8 was left unchanged though, so as per, it was a nice relaxing way to ease me into this world's boss. Speaking of which, as soon as I saw the stage, I knew I was in for a hellish time. Now don't get me wrong, the ladders in this game fucking suck, because all it takes is forgetting about one for a split second and... Oh, fuck, I forgot about the pissing ladder! But what's even worse are these fiery fucktards. They wouldn't be too bad if they just stayed put. But no, Spicy Boy want to go on an adventure! So you've basically got to control both your minis and the enemies at the same time and position them so that they either don't get in your way or can be easily taken out. Fortunately for me though, I must have been blessed as only 5 minutes into the stage, I had managed to hit all 3 switches and gotten myself the Desert Side Chaos achievement. The minigame for this world was much like the previous one, just a slightly harder version of an earlier stage, so naturally I beat it on my very first try for the Desert Side Order achievement. Allowing me to move on to Cosmic Adventure, where they instantly tell me to go diddle myself in a corner by adding not just new platforms to deal with, but also magnetic flooring. Well, joke's on you, Nintendo, I'm single, so I already am a professional at that. Fortunately, they started off by only implementing the magnetic flooring, but I could already tell from how long the level took to beat that this mechanic alone was going to be a total nightmare. And oh, how right I was, as only a single stage later, we had a whole new enemy type to deal with. And much like the flames from the last world, they go walkies. To just about nobody's surprise, this one soggy biscuit ended up killing me multiple times, but after a concerningly long 10 minutes, I finally got the level down. This does not bode well for me. Well, at least it's just one new enemy to deal with. Oh, son of a fucking bitch. Yup, they added thwomps. These guys slam down on a set timer, meaning you now have to time things perfectly, but luckily for this level, you can pretty much just block them off for the entire duration. Stage 4 had multiple minis once again, but no enemies, meaning this was a relatively simple time, and I was able to beat it in no time whatsoever, allowing me to move on to 6.5, where they added another new mechanic. God damn it! This time, it was rotatable poles that I could use to flip my minis. Although this sounds like a nightmare, the worst thing about this level was the fact that Zappy Miggy was back. Stage 6 was a bit of a big boy with multiple spinny poles and, oh boy, another Zappy Zap. This one admittedly confused the ever-loving hell out of me, but once I'd taken my mandatory deaths to this queef, I'd eventually pull the answer right out my ass as per usual. The next stage, whose number I will not say out loud for obvious reasons, was another mini Nappa stage, and the hardest part about this one was actually finding a way to keep these hammers long enough so that they'd actually make it to the monkey. But once I remembered that you can drop this big guy down to a different location, it all kind of fell into place, allowing me to move on to the final and most relaxing level of this stage. Why the fuck are you here? That's fine. Having all my hair is overrated anyway. This stage honestly sucked balls, as not only were the piranha plants a giant pain in my very nicely sculpted ass, but for the first time, getting the key bearer to the front actually gave me some issues. However, I'd say I got a little lucky here, as by just brute forcing it and trying things over and over, I did eventually manage to win and allow myself to move on to the boss. And oh boy, what a boss this would be. DK must have known how much I hated Mr. Shockycock, because he invited his friends to join in on the metallic cheek clapping. In fact, as you progress through the stage, they even invite a third. Oh my god, there's a third! But you know me, I never back down from a fight, unless I'm likely to lose, in which case, screw that. And by the sheer power of slamming my head against my desk over and over, I eventually managed to pull through and get myself the Cosmic Galaxy Madness achievement. Moving on to the minigame, it was yet again just a harder version of a previous stage, and I have to admit, I'm actually really starting to enjoy these more simple levels. It just kind of helps break up the stress a little bit. Either way, I naturally won on my first try, giving me the Cosmic Galaxy Composure achievement. Now it was on to the next world, Cannon Cove, and you'll never guess what they had here. These levels started off by naturally teaching you the basics of the cannons, but you mostly just wait for it to face the desired direction and then shoot. Luckily, there's no drop-off to worry about, and you can break fragile blocks and kill enemies with them, so that's pretty cool. Stage 2 combined cannons with pipes and springs, so nothing too complicated off the bat. And Stage 3 added conveyors as well as cannons that moved along an axis. I actually started really liking the cannons here, as when you're inside them you are completely untouchable, giving me a moment to breathe and figure out my next move. On to the next level, we had yet another newcomer in Pauline, and with this stage having so many different minis to worry about, I did get a little bit overwhelmed, but against all odds, still cleared it on my first attempt. I'm just that good. Stage 5 added a load of enemies, as well as ladders, which had me worried, but turns out this level is incredibly linear, so no worries there. Stage 6 added a completely new enemy type that shoots multiple bullets out in a burst formation, pushing them back with the recoil. Luckily, you can use this recoil to your advantage to position them in the way of a cannon to easily take them out, which is exactly what I did. Now on to Stage 7, we had 2 mini-nappers to deal with, and to make matters worse, I found out something rather concerning. Oh shit, he's in my own! This stage took a lot longer than the others, as I once again took my time figuring out how to deal with these DK diddlers, but I did eventually figure it out myself with the tried and true method of trial and error. Putting me on the last stage, where I had a true blonde moment where I spent a good few minutes trying to figure out how on earth to grab this coin at the bottom of the stage, before finally deciding to actually scroll all the way up and see the hammers that were just sitting there in plain sight. Now that I wasn't being a total moron, I was able to use these to kill the enemies in my way, grab the coin, and of course finish the level off so that I can move on to the main man himself. And thankfully, I can actually say that this boss fight was by far one of the easiest in the game. The barrels DK chucks down are barely a threat, as most of your time is spent inside cannons when you are totally invulnerable, and so by just ensuring that the path to the end is clear from crumbling blocks, you can easily finish this stage in no time whatsoever, just like I did, awarding myself the Ballistic Beach Mischief achievement. And yes, this world's minigame is the same as an older one, but slightly harder, so I just went through as per, and oh, I failed. I guess this far into the game, it only makes sense that the score limit for all 3 medals would be tighter, so after another attempt where this time I made sure to pick up all of the time bonuses which I may have missed previously, I returned to the results screen in a much better way, unlocking for myself Ballistic Beach Pleasure, so I could now move on to World 8, Super Sky Wheel, where the new ability that was introduced was certainly a unique one, to say the least. Naturally, the first level had just the new mechanic for me to get used to it, and as much as I really don't want to admit it, it took me a while to figure out. But I got there eventually, and that is what matters. Stage 2 added in conveyors, which somehow made things easier. 8.3 made things more complicated again by adding springs and spinies. It seems just about anyone can become a block nowadays. 8-4 was the return of the minis. Fortunately, no new ones this time, as it seems our party has reached full capacity. Also, just to let you know, I absolutely nailed this level. Look at my score. How you looking? And then the next level looked like hell on earth, but was luckily just another big scary looking stage that turns out to be incredibly linear, thank God. Stage 6 added these copper platform thingies back, which was somehow the easiest stage so far. And Stage 7 had both the Juggler Kong and the Kiddie Snatcher Kong, which absolutely fried my brain. It took me so long to figure this one level out, I am talking tens of minutes. But after intentionally sacrificing some of my minis to the No-No Monkey, then positioning him in the line of fire for the hammer power-up, I did eventually get it out of the way, allowing me to move on to the final level of the world, where I had a nightmare trying to get the key wielder in front of the other minis, but in the end I think I solved it in a way that Nintendo probably wasn't expecting, unless they were expecting this, in which case I'm a genius. The boss fight for this stage was surprisingly just a harder rendition of one of the first fights, but when I say harder, I mean somebody spiked your drink with 3 Viagras harder. I died to this one fight over and over and over and over again, spending a total of 25 minutes just bashing my brains against my desk, until at long last I managed to get the run that allowed me to press all 3 switches for Sky High Havoc so that I could finally move on to the minigame. Seriously, fuck this fight. Fortunately, I learned my lesson from last ward's minigame, so I went into this one intending on collecting every bonus timer and not failing a single mini, which is exactly what I did, finally giving me Sky High delights and allowing me to at long last head into the final fight with DK himself. Now, I had no idea what to expect from this fight, maybe a combination of all previous bosses or something, but if you thought it was going to be a weird bubble shooter type game, then you've played this before, haven't you? The whole aim for this fight is to steer the cannon on the bottom screen to aim at DK and then fire your minis at him and hit him a total of 6 times. All the while, he throws rockets at you that you have to dodge, places floating mines that you must avoid, and even spins the entire Ferris wheel around to nab your minis himself. This was really strange, to say the least, but kind of refreshing, I won't lie. That was until he was on his last remaining hit on my very first attempt, and this happened. Ah, shit, that would have been clean. He's going around again. Go for it! No! Fuck! That moment was so painful for me as I would try to get back to that one point for 20 minutes straight to no avail. Don't get me wrong, the lack of a gap between the screens threw me off big time when it came to aiming the minis, but the most annoying thing is sometimes DK decides he wants to hold on to the rockets until you've already fired your shot, and then throw them, meaning you are completely buggered, which is super fun, so thanks Nintendo, very cool. But with the power of perseverance and a little bit of White Monster, the time finally came where I returned to his final hit. Got his ass! And just like that, the gorilla was down, awarding me both Final Showdown shenanigans and Final Showdown stability for beating the final boss. Roll the credits! With all stages complete, we... Plus mode! Yeah, so we kind of have to beat the entire game again, but harder now, so prepare your anuses for that. But first of all, you didn't think I was finished with normal mode, did you? Turns out all those medals that you got from the stages, yeah, they unlock these special levels, of which there are 20 to go through, and to make matters even worse, the trophies for each level unlock these expert stages too. I am never going to finish this game, am I? Heading into Special Stage 1, I was immediately informed that things worked a little differently than before, as instead of being able to choose who sets off and when, there will be a countdown at the beginning of the stage, and then all of the minis would set off at once. Naturally, this almost immediately messed me up, so I decided to take some time to think of a strategy, and decided that my best bet was to get all of the minis to meet up somewhere and form a single group, so that was all I really had to worry about. And clearly, this was a good call from me, as you cannot argue with the results. Stage 2 immediately stepped things up by throwing in a juggling DK, but by sticking true to my methods and making sure the minis met up somewhere, I was fortunately able to beat the stage on my very first try with relative ease. The same could not be said, however, for the next stage, as springs were reintroduced, meaning syncing up the minis was going to be a pain in my ass. In fact, after dying for the first time, I started to get nervous that things were already going to get a little too difficult for me. Then I beat it in under 30 seconds on my next attempt. Why not? Moving on to the next stage, it looked similar to the previous stage, but bigger and slightly more pink. That was until I discovered something absolutely horrifying. You can die of fall damage? I absolutely hated this level. Just straight up, it is so ass. It takes so long for the minis to sync up to the direction that they're going, and it is so easy to accidentally kill one, but I did eventually beat it, so I am moving on. For the next level, conveyors made their return, and they are so helpful in this mode, as I can use them to basically hold some of the minis in one place until they all meet up, and then together, they can all head to the goal. I love you, conveyors. And they may just love me back, because they're back again, let's go! This, of course, meant that this level was no problem for me whatsoever, and I naturally cleared it on my first time round, so I could move on to the next level, which switched out my beloved conveyors for some stinky-ass pipes. Luckily, it wasn't too bad of a level, but it did take me a fucking age to get these little-ass wipes to stick together. My God! Stage 8 had...
Yeah, they're back, baby. And you know what that means.
Easy level, let's go! But the next stage took them away again and left these heathens in their place. I hate the ladders in this game, as it's just so easy to forget to remove one somewhere, and there was also no easy way to sync up the minis here. So this one took a good 3 to 4 attempts, but after a little bit of trial and error, I did eventually pull through, so we could move on to the halfway mark of this world. Another fucking ladder level! And somehow, this one was even worse! The syncing for this is absolute torture, to the point I think I'd rather be stuck in a sex dungeon with Boris Johnson and Donald Trump's long-deceased nan. Seriously, this one level put me through a hell that I really don't want to relive, and for that reason, hey look, the level's complete. And not only that, but I also got Colourful Rainbow Confusion for making it halfway through these special stages. Stage 11 added magnetic floors, copper panels, and magnetic poles all at once, which just about made me shit myself, and after what I thought was a run-ending fuck-up, oh shit, I've got to drop them down. I just stuck with it, and somehow still made it to the end in time, giving me Colourful Rainbow Certainty for collecting everything in 10 special stages, even though this marks 11. I don't know how that works, but sure. The next stage added absolutely fuck all new, but it just made the layout a little more confusing, and so after making what I'm sure is some very motion sick minis, I did eventually make it to the next level. Stage 13 marked the return of the cannons, which I was actually rather happy about, as they would be very useful for holding minis so that I could get them to meet up. But it turns out this level is actually rather linear anyway. So the main worry here was just managing the timing of the piranha plants. Fuck! But with all that down, I was able to pretty simply reach the end of the level and move on to stage 14, which decided to re-add ladders in case I hadn't suffered enough. But it did keep the cannons at the very least, so that was nice. All this really meant is once I managed to get past the part of the level that depended heavily on the ladders, I was able to move on to the cannon section, and things went a little bit smoother, allowing me to move on to the next level. Stage 15 reintroduced the enemy block thingies, and admittedly did give me a little bit of trouble at first. Having to manage both the enemies and the minis at the same time was a bit of a pain in the ass, but once I decided to focus on getting the enemies on their blocks first, everything kind of fell into place, as with no more hostilities, all I had to really do was beeline it to the exit. Then in the next level, conveyors returned, so I was naturally able to beat it on my very first try. Never leave me again. And then in the next level they left me. No, my conveyors! But nothing replaced them, so all I had to worry about were normal platforms and a couple of pipes. So by just holding most of the minis in a single place and then choosing the right time to release them back to meet the other minis, this was strangely one of the easier levels. Stage 18, however, was not so much, as this added back the thwomps, who I kept forgetting about. But once I'd remembered to just keep them blocked off for the majority of the stage, and then move them when needed, it came pretty naturally. Oh, and I also clutched up last second. That was fucking close. The next stage, however, wasn't half as annoying, but was certainly still a challenge, as you had to manage 3 juggling DKs at once. But once you realise that all they really do is chuck you upwards, it loses a bit of its edge, and things start coming together, just like they did for me here. And finally, stage 20 was an absolute clusterfuck of minis that was certainly overwhelming at first, but if you take the time to block off the hazards and then aim for each collectible one by one, you'll eventually collect them all, allowing you to beeline it straight for the goal and complete this hellish world, giving me colourful rainbow commotion and colourful rainbow kindness for both completing all special stages and getting all the collectibles, leaving me with just the expert levels for normal mode. And don't worry about the locked stage, that will unlock once we finish stage 7. The first stage had joyous joys, more ladders, as well as movable pipes. Now, the interesting thing about this one, however, was the fact that figuring it out was only half of the issue. Once I had my plan in mind, I had to actually have the reaction time to remove one pipe and place it where it was needed before the first mini made it into the other pipe. This was actually really quite tight and something you will see come up in a lot of the other extreme levels, but I stuck with it and eventually got it down in no time. Stage 2 was a semi-linear cannon stage with next to no solid ground to stand on, but that actually didn't matter much, and you can kind of just launch yourself around to pick up everything without having to worry about much, so this was actually rather simple for an expert level. Stage 3 was a bit more complicated, as it required you being able to move these pipes around super fast once again, and let me tell you, doing this on a mouse is no easy feat. But again, I found that by just feeling out the level by running through it a couple times, you'll eventually figure this one out, just like I did. The next stage was super tall, had springs, and those weird enemy block things, but it also had conveyors. And honestly, they really helped, as you can use them to pretty much recover from anything. All in all, this stage was pretty much a two-parter, where you first had to get the enemies to the bottom while avoiding all of your minis, and then you had to get your minis to the end while collecting everything on the way down. Fun level, 8 out of 10. Stage 5 had both Shy Guys and Piranhas, but other than that, not much. I found it was best to first trap the Shy Guys somewhere where they couldn't get in my way, and then from there, keep the Piranhas sealed off permanently, and just make my way upwards, collecting everything on the way. Sounds simple, but you do have to be pretty fast with the bridging, so keep that in mind. Stage 6 was a bit of a daunting one, to be honest, with it having pipes, a tiny amount of conveyors, breakable blocks, thwomps, and those copper platform things, and it turns out it was daunting for a very good reason. The timing on this level is tighter than... I'm not finishing that sentence. And I really, really mean tight. The whole idea for this level is using the conveyors to move the thwomp around so that it can destroy a set of blocks, trapping one of the minis, and then once all of them are free, you can basically just beeline it for the end, but you have to be very quick and very accurate, as if you miss one single placement, you will not beat the level fast enough for the trophy. This level was when I realised that I was in for quite a troublesome ride. And the trouble just kept on coming, as in level 7, it was back to the springs and cannons for me. This level was a rough one for sure, but only took me 2 attempts, as a lot of this stage's difficulty comes from having the resources ready to think on the fly. So if you ever put down a platform, once it's been used, be sure to pick it back up again, because trust me, you are going to need it, and you're going to need it fast. Now level 8, things were just getting stupid. I'm talking thwomps, springs, copper platforms, pipes, piranhas, and shooting Shy Guys. Really, Nintendo. This level actually had quite a lot in common with the last one, as the main difficulty here was not the pathing, but the fact that it is long as hell, and you need to keep placing things down, using them, and then picking them right back up again to be able to use almost instantly. This one took a couple of tries, sure, but once I got the hang of it, it was alright. Still challenging though. Reaching the penultimate level, things continued to be batshit crazy, as we were now working with cannons, movable pipes, springs, breakable blocks, piranhas, and shooting Shy Guys. This level was fucking nuts. The best way to break this down, in my opinion, is to think of it as 3 separate sections. Section 1 has a pipe section where you lead a mini through a maze of pipes into a cannon, and then once in the cannon, he can go over to this other cannon where he will wait for Section 2, this guy, who wants us to play another game of take the spring, place the spring, and he'll eventually end up in the cannon with guy 1. Fire them both to the right and you'll need to wait for a solid 20 seconds or so for this window to line up and allow us to pass on, but then you've made it to Section 3. In this part, you just kind of have to play it safe as it's not too complicated, but one mess up is all it takes, remember? Luckily, after 20 minutes, I managed to get it down and move on to the final level of the first playthrough. And this one was a doozy. 6 minis, 6 pipes, and a lot of red platforms to make. This one needs you to find the single most optimal route to take in order to pick up enough resources to get all of the minis safely to the end. And it took me about 5 minutes. It was big and complicated, sure, but honestly, those last 2 levels were a lot worse. So I kind of just brute forced this, and by some miracle, it all worked out in the end, giving me both the Storage Room Uprising and the Storage Room Balance achievements, marking the end of playthrough 1 and the start of Plus Mode. In the interest of keeping this video not being an hour long, and the fact that I'm so fucking done with this game, I will be going through these levels in minimal detail. So, without any further ado, Stage 1 introduced a new incredibly annoying order mechanic where I would need to get the minis to the end in the correct order. That will stick for the entire Plus Mode playthrough. Stage 2 was literally just more of the same. Stage 3 was more of the same but with pipes. Stage 4 was more of the same but Toad started in a capsule. Sucks to be you. Stage 5 was more of the same but with enemies and hammers. Stage 6 was more of the same but with fucking ladders. Stage 7 was more of the same but with a single juggler DK. And Stage 8 was more of the same but it didn't really matter because this was a key level so the order was already the whole gimmick. Moving on to the boss, I couldn't quite tell what was different this time around, I'm going to be honest. Maybe DK was slightly more aggressive? I don't know. Either way, I won first try for extra Grassland Mayhem. Moving on to the minigame, which just had less blocks and one chest was replaced by a pit. So, no problem at all. Winning that got me extra Grassland Harmony. On to World 2! Stage 1 marked the return of the Springs. Stage 2 was, shocker, more of the same, but Mario was vacant, so that was something that happened. Stage 3 just turned the Springs pink. Stage 4 was the capsule level. Stage 5 had a scary blue pipe with its springs. And Stage 6 had even more pipes, leading me into Stage 7, the juggling Kong stage, and then of course Stage 8, the key level. Boss time now, and was there this many springs before? Not that it matters, because I fucked this monkey for more deep jungle hijinks. Before moving on to the minigame, which once again just added a pit. That's harder, right? Allowing me to get more deep jungle tranquility.
It's tea time, bitches!
Stage 1 was of course the return of the best mechanic in the game, the conveyors. Stage 2 had me lose by the skin of my teeth, only to win on the next attempt by doing literally nothing different. Stage 3 was just more conveyors. Stage 4 was the capsule level. Stage 5 added hammers and Shy Guys. Stage 6 added pipes. Stage 7 was the return of Juggle McGee. And Stage 8 was the key level, leading me into the boss stage, which had clearly gotten a little hotter since I was last here. Also, this fight took me half an hour. Cuck. But I did eventually get added Sweet Tea Turmoil so that I could move on to the minigame and really rather easily earn myself added Sweet Tea Peace.
Spooky time!
Stage 1 reintroduced the moving pipes, joyous joys. Stage 2 got you used to them and also made me want to force an Allen key down my pee hole out of pure frustration. Stage 3 made me focus on 2 split teams. Stage 4 was the capsule level. Stage 5 added spitting piranha plants. Stage 6 added enemies and a ladder. Stage 7 was Chuck McFuck's domain, and Stage 8 was the key level, and yet another pain in my proverbial pum-pum. Which meant next was boss time! And oh, I forgot about this one. Luckily, it went pretty quickly, and in just 5 minutes, I was able to get leftover Mysterious Mansion antics and move on to the minigame, which actually gave me a little bit of trouble due to how few building points there were. But I beat it nonetheless for leftover Mysterious Mansion courage. So I can now move on to, oh for fuck's sake, not the ladders. Stage 1 sucked, Stage 2 was ass, Stage 3 can lick my taint, Stage 4 was the capsule level, Stage 5 can suck an egg. Stage 6's Nan is a Tefal anti-stick pan. Stage 7 had the Diddler. And Stage 8 was the key level. I didn't like this one very much. Leading me into hell. It took me to hell. But luckily, after a very close shave, you might actually hit me. Oh my god, that was close. I beat the monkey for different desert side chaos, so I could then destroy the minigame first try for different desert side order. Shout out to all my claustrophobic homies, cause it's time for a little space. Stage 1 was the return of the magnetic flooring. Stage 2 re-added the copper platforms and the shocky bitches that I despise so much. And in all honesty, I shouldn't have won this one. Go DK! Go! Faster! That counted? That's surprising. Stage 3, we introduced thwomps alongside copper platforms and movable pipes. Stage 4 was the capsule level. Stage 5 re-added the spinnable poles and was super annoying. Stage 6 was just more spinny poles and shock boys. Stage 7 was the return of Diddler Diddler Mini Fiddler. And Stage 8 was the key stage, leading me into the boss that gave me a lot of trouble last time. But this time around, there were 5 shocky spawners, so yeah, this fucking sucked. However, somehow I did manage to beat this after only 5 minutes for Special Cosmic Galaxy Madness, so I could move on to the minigame, and you have got to be fast at this point in the game. Jesus Christ! Luckily, I am, so I was able to get Special Cosmic Galaxy Composure on my first try round.
Boom boom time!
Stage 1 was the long-awaited re-implementation of the cannons. Stage 2 was more of the same, but with pipes and springs. Stage 3 was the holy combination of cannons and conveyors. Stage 4 was the capsule level. Stage 5 had cannons, fire-spitting piranhas, fire enemies, and ladders. Stage 6 had shooty shy guys. Stage 7 had the diddling duo. And Stage 8 was the key stage, leading me into the boss stage, and thankfully, although things had changed substantially, this was still one of the easier fights, allowing me to easily obtain bigger ballistic beach mischief before heading into the minigame to test my reflexes and nab myself bigger ballistic beach pleasure. Okay, final world. Stage 1 re-added the enemy block things. Whose idea was this? Stage 2 added both conveyors and pipes. Stage 3 included springs. Stage 4, you know the gist by now. Stage 5 implemented cannons. Stage 6 added the copper platforms. Stage 7 had 2 monkeys, 1 stage. And Stage 8 was the key level, leading me into the penultimate boss fight. And for as simple as this stage may look, god damn, it was annoying as hell. But with time, I would eventually kick the Kong and earn extended Sky High Havoc, allowing me to move on to the final minigame, which naturally I cleared first try for extended Sky High Delight, meaning it was now time for the actual final boss fight. I was admittedly very curious what they had changed going into this, but what I didn't expect was for there to be practically no difference. Sure, you can make the argument that he's slightly more aggressive here, but honestly, it was hard enough first time round, so I was low-key kinda glad that not much had changed. Don't get me wrong, I still had my fair share of bullshittery. No! But after admittedly a very long-feeling hour of attempts, I was able to get him low enough to go for one more try at the last hit. Got him! Oh. And with that, I earned myself both fresh Final Showdown shenanigans and fresh Final Showdown stability for beating the final boss a second time around. But old DK doesn't seem to give up so easily. That is, until Mario pulls out a Pauline figure that I can only assume he had all this time, meaning this whole thing could have been avoided. Fuck you, Mario. And so, now all that stands between me and being done with this godforsaken game that I hope I never have to touch again is the 20 special levels and, of course, the 10 final expert stages. Why is there always more? You've obviously seen all these stages before in the previous playthrough, so just as a reminder, Special Stage 1 was basic as can be, Stage 2 added just a DK, Stage 3 had just yellow springs, Stage 4 simply turned them pink, Stage 5 had conveyors, Stage 6 had more conveyors, Stage 7 had movable pipes, Stage 8 kept the pipes but added conveyors. Stage 9 replaced everything with ladders. Stage 10 continued the ladder suffering, but this time with pipes and enemies, and gave me both colourful rainbow confusion and another colourful rainbow certainty for beating and collecting all collectibles in 10 special stages. Stage 11 had magnetic flooring, copper panels and spinnable poles. Stage 12 was the same, but somehow even worse. Stage 13 re-added the godly cannons. Stage 14 added ladders and shy guys. Stage 15 added those weird morph block thingies. Stage 16 mixed the morph blocks and the conveyors. Stage 17 was just a very busy stage with a lot of platforms. Stage 18 added thwomps to the copper platforms and took me about 40 minutes to beat, I'm not gonna lie. Stage 19 was the triple monkey stage. And finally, Stage 20 just threw a shit ton of minis at me in a gigantic level, which I managed to conquer on my second attempt, giving me Advanced Rainbow Colourful Commotion and Advanced Rainbow Colourful Kindness for beating all special stages and collecting everything within them. Okay, home stretch, baby. Final 10 levels. Expert Stage 1 was a simple starter with pipes and a couple of ladders. Stage 2 was also a simple cannon level, as long as you react fast enough to Pauline cucking you last second, which I totally did. I didn't expect Pauline to cuck me last second. Stage 3 was a finicky game of making sure Peach's hammer lasted long enough. Stage 4 was nice and easy thanks to the beautiful nature of conveyors. Stage 5 was a big open area with lots of red platforms. Stage 6 was that one really annoying level where you slide the thwomps around. Stage 7 played out pretty much one for one the way that it did before. Stage 8 is just straight up one of the longest and most rage-inducing levels of all time. Stage 9 was the one that I recommended splitting into 3 parts last time, and that still very much applies. And finally, Stage 10 was a massive stage with a very specific order to things, but through trial and error, mostly error, I managed to make it to the very end of the level, giving me both new storage room uprising and new storage room balance for beating all expert stages and nabbing every collectible within them. Now, the astute amongst you will probably have noticed that there's still one achievement remaining, and that, my friends, is because I left the very worst of it for last. Something so ridiculous that I couldn't force myself to endure it without having beaten every single level first. And that is the level builder! In all seriousness, all I have to do here is go through these 4 super basic tutorial levels where you first learn about adding blocks, then do the exact same thing again, then you learn about placing the red blocks and their platforms before doing it one last time, and then upon returning to the menu, I was finally given the very last achievement, Construction Zone Insanity, marking the 100% completion of Mario vs. Donkey Kong Miniland Mayhem. Thank you so much for watching this video. Honestly, it means an awful lot that you stuck around to the end for this very long one. In all seriousness though, this really did take me an absolute age to film, scriptwrite, and edit for. In fact, just take a look at the timeline. So if you did enjoy this video, do be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and leave a thumbs up. It really, really does help. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Ta-ta.